Welcome to this week's Movie Math, where sequels and zombies prove to be particularly hard to kill at the box office. For those of you hoping that Pixar will refocus on original stories, my condolences, as that is unlikely to happen anytime soon after the success of Monsters University. Not only did the Monsters, Inc. prequel easily take the #1 spot, but it is their second biggest debut after another sequel, Toy Story 3. And as movie audiences continue their love affair with franchises, one of the few things today that still consistently gets them into movie theaters, don't be surprised if in the coming weeks or even days, Pixar adds more sequels to its slate aside from Finding Dory. But as I've explained before, it's unlikely one of those sequels will be The Incredibles 2. Yet such strong box office arguments could persuade Pixar and Disney to be more persuasive with Brad Bird. And yes, I'm talking about money. And as we've seen recently, Disney knows how to make it talk. And Monsters University is not only one of Pixar's biggest openings, but the 4th biggest opening ever for a computer animated film. Despicable Me 2 has some big furry monster shoes to fill in just 2 weeks. Speaking of all-time highs, Brad Pitt enjoyed the biggest debut of his career with World War Z in 2nd place. And box office victory must have tasted all the more sweet considering he not only produced the zombie flick himself, but overcame a veritable Mount Everest of bad publicity. Yet today, Pitt is enjoying nothing but great publicity as World War Z seriously overperformed. Industry analysts had predicted it opening at around $40 million, and is the biggest opening for an original live-action blockbuster since Avatar. Avatar! All weekend, analysts have been comparing it to Inception, but shockingly, World War Z opened bigger. In the midst of all these headlines, Paramount has begun to move forward with a World War Z sequel, and just like that, we have ourselves another franchise. Paramount, having lost Marvel and DreamWorks Animation, is eager to build new franchises, especially with their alternate universe Star Trek franchise failing to dazzle earlier this summer. Plus, it would give them the opportunity to make their money back, something they're unlikely to do on this uber-costly first pick, no matter how much money it pulls in at the box office. As for Man of Steel, it turns out even Superman is susceptible to zombie fever, as it failed to hold on to the #1 spot in its second weekend, instead dropping around 64% to 3rd place. Last week, one of you asked me in the comments what would be a disturbing drop for Man of Steel, and I said anything in the 60th percentile or higher would be bad. Iron Man 3, The Avengers, and The Dark Knight all dropped around 50% in their second weekends, all while still holding on to the #1 spot. And Thor impressively dropped just around 47%, also holding on to the #1 spot. And of course, who can forget the infamous second week drop of 69% for Ang Lee's Hulk? But to be fair, Captain America dropped 60% in its second weekend and also fell to #3, and that movie is getting a sequel. Plus, The Dark Knight Rises also fell a little over 60% in its second weekend and still went on to join the $1 billion club. And while it did hold on to the #1 spot for 3 weeks, that's easier to do when you come out in late July as opposed to mid-June. Plus, Man of Steel can also boast strong box office numbers overseas, where foreign markets once again save Hollywood in a single bound. Worldwide, Man of Steel is about to pass the 400 million mark, although World War Z proved to be tough competition globally as well, where it already has passed the century mark. Last week I said that after Man of Steel's second weekend, we'd have a clearer, if not definitive, answer regarding its success. Yet here we are, and Man of Steel remains as mysterious as the new version of the hero himself. Based on these box office numbers, it would seem Warner Brothers would be wise to move ahead with the Man of Steel sequel, yet perhaps should wait to see how that goes before focusing on a Justice League movie or any other solo movies. As for whether or not they'll keep the same creative team behind the camera, these box office numbers are so gray they can be used equally for or against Nolan and company. Although after what happened late last week with movie chief Jeff Robinov choosing to resign from the studio, Warner Brothers is in a gray area itself. You can check out my full coverage of that via the link at the end of this video, but in short, Nolan and Snyder could be leaving along with Robinov. Therefore, while we had a slew of announcements regarding the DC Cinematic Universe right before Man of Steel opened, don't expect any more in the near future. As for the rest of the box office, This Is the End, Now You See Me, and surprisingly, Iron Man 3 all enjoyed very low drops, while The Internship and The Purge continued to plummet. As for this coming weekend, the last before 4th of July, White House Down and The Heat are in a dead heat to see who will come out on top. Yet Monsters University has a real shot at becoming the 3rd film of the summer to hold on to the #1 spot in its second weekend, after Iron Man 3 and Fast and Furious 6. And that's the weekend box office. I'm Grace Randolph, and we just did some movie math. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll go beyond the trailer for these other top movies.